Good evening and welcome to Business 7. Our studio guest tonight is Frederick Müller. He's the Managing Director of AlexForbes Namibia, and we will be discussing the local asset management landscape. As usual, we'll also bring you news across the African continent. We'll be back right after this.
Connection. It's in the human touch, the feeling of belonging. It inspires us and empowers us, creates clarity from complexity. It starts new conversations, unlocks the power of advice, and makes an impact on your life. At AlexForbes, we pioneer insight to provide you with advice that connects your decisions of today to your impact tomorrow.
Before we kickstart the show, let's take a look at the business highlights in Africa over the past week as compiled by Reuters.
Here's what's been making the business headlines in sub-Saharan Africa this week. Anglo American is exploring an IPO for its diamonds business De Beers. Two people familiar with the matter have said on a condition of anonymity. Anglo, which has been synonymous with South African mining for decades, set out plans for a potential breakup of some of its assets on Tuesday, as it fights off a $43 billion takeover bid from BHP. Shell said on Thursday that it had extinguished a fire at its Baron Ubie gas facility in Nigeria's coastal Bayelsa state. The blaze broke out 2 days earlier at what is by far the most important Nigerian LNG feedstock project, processing 2 billion standard cubic feet of gas per day. Zambia's central bank raised its main lending rate for the 6th consecutive policy meeting on Wednesday, citing a continued rise in inflation and inflation expectations. Inflation has been rising in Zambia since the middle of last year and reached 13.8% in April, driven by a weak kwacha and the worst drought in the region in decades. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni was in Nairobi for the signing of various bilateral agreements alongside Kenya's President William Ruto. That's after a row between the two neighbours was resolved when Kenya allowed landlocked Uganda's state oil firm to import petroleum products through its port of Mombasa. Ruto said Thursday's signing of a tripartite agreement would enable Uganda National Oil Company to import directly from different jurisdictions,
thus bringing to an end the challenges faced by the sector in Uganda.
And finally, Dubai's Emirates airline has said it will resume flight schedules to Nigeria from October. Flights were suspended in 2022 after the carrier was unable to repatriate funds amid foreign currency shortages in Nigeria.
Asset management is an extremely important sector in the economy. Not only is it huge, but it also manages assets like pension funds, etc. We are joined in the studio by Frederick Müller. He's the Managing Director of AlexForbes Namibia. Frederick, let's start at the beginning. You are now the Managing Director of AlexForbes Namibia. Give us a little bit of your educational background.
Jomari, I matriculated at Windhoek High School, and thereafter I went to Stellenbosch University. I obtained the BCom mathematics degree, and then after that I obtained the Chartered Financial Analyst designation. It's better known as the CFA designation, and I've also obtained the Certified Financial Planner designation from the University of the Free State.
That is quite a mouthful, all those figures, very impressive. Please tell us, what are some of the new roles and responsibilities that you have to do in your job?
Jomari, I manage a small team of investment professionals. I also manage strategic client relationships, and then I'm very much involved in and leading initiatives to try and build the Namibian investment business.
Your management style, how would you describe that?
Well, first of all, I would say I'm a very relaxed manager. I use a combination of collaborative and delegative management styles. I believe it's very important to get the input of your team members on the table, because I believe each team member brings a different perspectives and new ideas to the table. And I also believe it's important to give a certain level of autonomy and control to your employees over their own work, because I believe that increases their creativity, it increases their motivation, and also their job satisfaction.
Very much in line with the modern trends in management. Can you tell us a bit about your short-term goals and what your focus will be on?
Yes, my main short-term goal would be to create greater awareness of the AlexForbes multi-manager approach and the advantages of the multi-management approach. Secondly, we always want to provide best-in-class service to our clients. And then thirdly, we want to continually improve our investment products. And then maybe just looking to the medium to longer term, I would really like to establish AlexForbes as a leading brand in the investment industry in Namibia.
You mentioned that AlexForbes Namibia is a multi-asset manager. What exactly is that?
Normally, it means that we pick investment managers or asset managers for our investment portfolio. So we do not pick the underlying investment instruments, but the instruments are actually selected by the managers that we've selected for our investment portfolios. And then very briefly to describe you, our investment and portfolio construction process is basically a three-step process. So first of all, we will select the asset classes for the investment portfolio based on that specific investment objectives of the portfolio. Once we've selected the asset classes, we select the underlying strategies for each asset class building block. And strategies could be active strategies, passive strategies, and also alternative strategies like hedge funds and unlisted assets. And once we've selected those strategies, we select the best-in-class asset manager or investment manager for those specific strategies. So typically, you would find that our investment portfolios consist of a number of underlying investment managers, and typically also with different and complementary investment styles. So we know that some of the styles would be equity investment styles, would be momentum, value, growth, and you will typically find all those investment styles in our investment portfolios.
Can you elaborate on what the benefits of this is to your clients?
Yes, we believe that the multi-management approach delivers a lot of advantages. The first advantage we believe is better diversification. We also believe that there's a reduction in the volatility of returns. But very importantly, in the end, we believe that our approach provides or enables us to deliver competitive investment returns to our investors, and not only on an absolute or relative basis, but also on a risk-adjusted basis. And then lastly, our approach is repetitive, and we believe that on a consistent basis, we're able to deliver very competitive returns to our investors.
There is this perception that multi-asset managers are more expensive because the fees are layered. Is that true?
Germany, actually, the contrary. Our investment portfolios are very competitively priced. If you look at the standard measure of investment management fees, it's called the total investment charge. We believe our portfolios are either in line with the market or sometimes cheaper. We often test the market and test our total investment charges of our portfolios. And the way we actually do this is to negotiate very competitive investment management fees with our underlying managers using our assets under management as leverage. And keep in mind that in South Africa, AlexForbes is by far the largest multi-manager in South Africa, and we're the only multi-manager in Namibia. They're one of the largest investment consulting firms globally.
Every day, you make choices that make you legendary. Journey together with us on the path to securing your legacy as a member of the League of Legends. With the Select Platinum Bundle Fee Premium Bank offering, you will access tools that will enable you to thrive. If you earn 850,000 Namibian dollars per annum or more, you can apply for this offering today via bankvinted.com.na for only 447 Namibian dollars per month. Bank Vinted, a member of Capricorn Group.
Frederick, what advice do you have for retirement members when it comes to their investment?
Jean-Marie, first of all, I would say that it's very important to rather focus on longer term and medium term investment performance. Don't focus too much on short term investment performance, because what they say is that typically there is a lot of short term noise in the market. And if you focus on short term results, this may lead you to make the wrong investment decisions. Secondly, I think it's very important for members to preserve their retirement fund credit, especially if you've resigned and moved to a new employment. You've got access to those retirement fund monies, so it's better to try to preserve it, because if you take those monies in cash, you have to start saving all over again, and your period that's left for you to save is shorter. So it's a shorter period that you have to build up your retirement fund reserves again. And then finally, for all especially young people, is to try to start saving from a very young age. They say that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, and use that to your advantage. And a very example of the effect of compound interest is if you've made an investment of 1,000 Namibian dollars in Naspers shares in 2004, over 20 years, the compound annual growth rate of those shares was just over 29%. And if you compound that over 20 years, your initial investment would have grown by 172-fold. So that's amazing effect. And you can see compound interest could have a significant impact on your retirement fund goals.
Do you plan to introduce any new investment products?
Yes, we actually very excited to introduce what we call a smoothing only product in the next month or so. We believe that there's a demand for this smoothing product. It's expected to deliver a real return of 5% per annum over 5-year rolling periods, but at very much lower levels of volatility of returns than comparable products with the same investment objective. So we're very excited about this product. We think it's a very innovative product, and we believe that the market will love it.
AlexForbes Namibia, of course, a household name, but according to you, what does the brand stand for?
Well, the brand, in my opinion, stands for excellence. And excellence, it's not only in terms of we providing excellent investment returns historically, but I also believe prospectively we're going to provide investors with excellent investment returns, but also in terms of service, I believe our service is excellent. And then trustworthiness. Investors could trust us. We will be your trusted investment partner for the long term.
Turning away from AlexForbes for a moment, how do you feel about the Namibian economy right now?
January, yes, the Namibian economy, I believe the Namibian economy has grown very well in 2023. It's grown by about 4%. The GDP growth was 4%. The next couple of years, the GDP is expected to grow by 3%. But we all know about the exciting new projects that's under construction or in the pipeline, like the green hydrogen project. A second desalination plant is planned to be built at the coast. We know about the big highway that's being built between Windhoek and Usia Kotaku International. But I believe the big game changer is the oil discovery offshore and the potential production of oil in 5 years' time. And you just have to look across the Atlantic to Guyana. It's a South American country. They've discovered oil in 2015, started producing oil in 2020, and their economy grew by 40% per annum. That's 40% per annum in the first 3 years after they started producing oil in 2020. And it's expected that the economy will grow by 20% per annum in the next couple of years. So that's multiples of what we currently grow at. So you can just imagine the potential impact if we start producing 500 or 600,000 barrels of oil per day from our offshore fields.
Exciting times, not just for Namibia, but also for AlexForbes. Frederick Müller, MD of AlexForbes Namibia, thank you for joining us. The El Nino-induced drought in Zimbabwe will leave more than half of the country's population in need of food. Let's take a look at this report compiled by Reuters.
More than half of Zimbabwe's population will need food aid this year, the country's cabinet heard late on Tuesday. That's after a devastating drought that led to widespread crop failure. According to the Zimbabwe Livelihoods Assessment Committee, 6 million people in rural areas and 1.7 million in urban areas will require assistance. The country is among the worst hit by the El Niño-induced drought in southern Africa. The government says it is the worst drought in 40 years. The latest crop assessment put maize production down by 77% in the 2023 to 2024 summer season. Zimbabwe has also failed to feed itself since 2000, when former President Robert Mugabe led land reforms which disrupted production. Climate change has made matters worse. Last month, a local consortium of private millers said it is planning to import 1.4 million metric tons of white and yellow maize from Brazil and other countries to cover the food deficit. President Emmerson Mnangagwa has appealed for $2 billion in food aid. Meanwhile, the United Nations and the UN's Children's Fund are also calling for financial assistance to save millions from hunger.
Let me show you something. Don't worry. Next time, I check nice.
Thanks, but it's okay. FNB Insurance checks nicer.
At FNB Insurance, we provide cover for all your valuables. From your phone, to your laptop, to your car. FNB Insurance. You value it, we cover it. T's and C's apply.
As South Africa's election date is getting nearer, the African National Congress is increasingly walking an energy tightrope. Reuters took a look at the issue.
As South Africa's election approaches, the ruling African National Congress is walking an energy tightrope, one that passes through villages like Komati. It sits in the shadow of a now shut-down power plant. The facility is undergoing a green makeover. That's as South Africa tries to balance its global commitments to decarbonise with its struggle to keep the lights on.
Komati was a place of happiness, of life. It had life.
Dumisani Mpungose was laid off from his maintenance job at the plant and says he now can't pay support for his 9-year-old daughter.
It's really dull now. It's dull. There's no way we can make it a place to stay. We're just here because we have no choice now.
Years of mismanagement, corruption and neglect have crippled state utility Eskom. Near-daily blackouts have hampered growth in a country with one of the world's highest unemployment rates. But South Africa also relies on coal for 80% of its power generation. It is one of the world's biggest producers of carbon emissions. Under the Paris Climate Agreement, South Africa has committed to cut those emissions to between 350 and 420 million metric tons annually by 2030. That's from 442 million this decade. Komati is a blueprint for how this is supposed to be done. Eskom is installing 370 megawatts of solar, wind and battery storage. Thevan Pile is the station's managing director.
Komati will move into renewables as part of Eskom's drive with the 2035 strategy to drive renewable energy and minimize the carbon emissions.
As they will prove this approach can work and will change people's mindsets. But with an election fast approaching, South Africa's power problems and the economic fallout are top issues. The ANC is expected to lose its parliamentary majority in the May 29th vote for the first time since the country's first multiracial election 3 decades ago. Mpumalanga province, where Komati is located and part of the country's coal belt, is an ANC stronghold. But party campaign worker Poppy Vilakazi says this time around she's been getting a decidedly frosty reception.
Go door to door. And yes, we still have a full members of supporters, but mostly they are angry. They feel that ANC let them down by allowing this power station to close.
And it's not just the public. Some of the ANC's own ministers have piled on the criticism, labelling Komati's closure a disaster and a mistake. South Africa's energy transition also comes with a hefty bill, potentially up to $46 billion. South Africa has turned to the US and wealthy European countries who have pledged $8.5 billion in financing. Most of it is loans. But for Vilakazi, the biggest cost will be carried on the shoulders of the people of Mpumalanga. If you take away the coal, she says, most people will be unemployed, and Mpumalanga will be the poorest of the poor.
Staying with South Africa, the country's national health insurance bill has been signed into law the past week, but business groups warn that it might cause a lot of damage to the economy. This report by Reuters.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa signed a bill into law on Wednesday that aims to provide universal health care.
Provision of health care in this country is currently fragmented. It is unsuitable and it is wholly unacceptable.
The National Health Insurance Bill is popular among voters, and its ratification comes 2 weeks before a national election. Most polls are predicting that vote will see the ruling African National Congress lose its majority for the first time since being led to power by Nelson Mandela 30 years ago. The bill, which will be implemented in stages at a cost of billions of dollars, was passed by lawmakers last year. It would overhaul the current two-tier system that still reflects deep racial and social inequalities 3 decades after the end of apartheid. However, the law is strongly opposed by business groups. They say it will lead to disinvestment in the healthcare sector and will damage South Africa's already fragile economy. Actor and filmmaker Kiroshan Naidu says he doesn't think it's going to work.
Look at all of our state-run enterprises, they just don't work. I think there's too much corruption within the ANC for something like this, which idealistically makes sense, but factually, and if we look at the history of the ANC and the SAA, ESCOM, it won't work.
The Democratic Alliance,
Opposition party Democratic Alliance, has said it will challenge the legislation in the courts without delay. Political commentators say that, despite the bill being signed, concrete changes are unlikely to come soon.
So we've come to the end of the Business 7 for this week. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Goodbye.